Our first mom is Donica Hudson from North Carolina, who is a mother of 3.
Well, I am from Western North Carolina, and I am Hurricane Helene Survivor. Thank you. Thank you. It's been rough. My family and I were actually trapped for 5 days, and the storm decimated our area, as you've seen. A 3rd grade boy in my county actually watched his mom perish in a mudslide. Hundreds are missing, and the death toll keeps rising. Families have lost everything, everything. My son's high school is still not back in. He's actually here serving because of that. And we don't know where these families are gonna live because we don't have housing, and it's actually snowing right now. My husband just sent me a picture. After the hurricane hit, I had a neighbor who had a broken ankle in 3 places, and on day 4, we were able to get her out with the help of the volunteer fire department in Banner Elk on a UTV because we still didn't have any help. It was private citizens, and thankful for Banner Elk. First Baptist Church in Newland. A young man there whom I know lost everything, and he and his young wife were there helping save lives around the clock, had a whole room set up, sending supplies and helping rescue. The church even had to buy him a pair of shoes because he lost everything. He and his young wife also had suffered the loss of a child, and he told me, losing a house is nothing, Donica, when you've lost your daughter. But yet they served with the love of Christ. And on behalf of Moms for America, as soon as we got out on day 5, I started coordinating relief. And I interviewed dozens of citizen chopper pilots at local airports. Most of them had paid for their fuel with crowdfunding. So there was one female that we interviewed who was a 21-year-old chopper pilot, privately funded, who was flying dangerous missions to rescue people in the mountains. At the Hickory Airport, the citizen pilots were rescuing more than 300 people, and at Foothills Regional, they were flying 400 missions a day. These are private pilots. FEMA was nowhere to be found for a whole week. Congress has now confirmed that FEMA emergency funds were used to buy airline tickets for migrants. FEMA is using our taxpayer money to bring people here illegally and not to save citizens in a natural disaster, and it's like a horror movie for those of us living through it. Kamala Harris announced a pitiful $750 payment to survivors. What an insult. When FEMA set aside $4.9 billion in September for COVID, that's 20 times more cash for COVID than Hurricane Helene aid. And we've given billions to other countries. Classic Biden-Harris America Last policy. But here's the good news. Where the federal government failed, American citizens became heroes. Samaritan's Purse responded immediately, sending workers in to muck houses and to minister to people in the name of Jesus. Moms for America is sending truckloads of life-saving supplies to hurricane victims, and we're so grateful. Our communities now have a bond like never before. This hurricane holocaust has united Americans, strengthened churches, and revived the American spirit. Thank you. I call upon our government and FEMA to put Americans first. Come to the aid of American citizens in our time of need. That's what our tax dollars pay our federal government to do, and it is failing us.
Yeah, thank you, Donica.
Thank you, Donica,
Thank
for
you,
coming in and
Donica.
sharing that story. We have Donica Hudson. She is from North Carolina, so she has a question for you.
Okay, Senator Vance. My family and I were trapped for 5 days living the nightmare of Hurricane Helene.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it. FEMA was nowhere to be found the first week and has done almost nothing. So my question is, what will the Trump-Vance administration do to restructure FEMA and to rebuild Western North Carolina?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I'm sorry that it happened, and I'm sorry, most importantly, that your government didn't do its job in response to it. Because what part of, I guess you're from the western part of North Carolina? So one of the things that if you grew up in the Appalachian part of our country, whether in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, anywhere else, is you often feel like your government doesn't care about you. And unfortunately, after the hurricane, I think that region of the world was really neglected and really left behind by the people who should have done the most to look out for these innocent victims. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say it, but I actually think that there would have been less loss of life if the government had responded more quickly. And what do we need to do to restructure FEMA? I actually think this one is pretty straightforward. You've just got to fire the present leadership and tell FEMA to focus on American citizens and not the illegal migrant issue. But I think there's a second part of this, and it goes to the rebuilding effort. And first of all, I promise, I look you in the eye and I promise you that if we win, and I think we're going to win, by the way, I think we're going to win in Pennsylvania, we're going to win the whole country. But I promise you, I'll never forget where I came from, and I'll never forget that we have a responsibility to help you all rebuild. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about your story, though I understand I'm not going to get the full picture up here. But the other thing is, when you have a crisis like this, there are some things that FEMA is just not equipped for. And so I criticize FEMA for focusing too much on the illegal immigrant problem, not enough on American citizens. But let's be honest, this was really a Biden and Kamala Harris shortcoming when as soon as the rivers started to swell like they did, the 82nd Airborne should have been in western North Carolina the next minute. That is what really screwed up. And if you think about all the bureaucracy of the federal government, right, you've got 8 different agencies that are supposed to do 8 different things. You need somebody who is in control, whose only job is to save as many lives as possible. And the fact that it took us 6-7 days before that was really possible or that was happening in North Carolina, I hate to say it, I think that there was a lot of loss of life that wouldn't have otherwise happened and just a lot of human suffering that we've got to do a better job of preventing next time.
Right.
God bless you. Thank you.